Hello guys, it's YLLiBzify here, and today's video I have another Photoshop tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make a clean social media banner, something like this example here, which has some images in the background of certain games. You can obviously do this as well with some player images, something like this, of a pro player or something like that, for your banners instead. And I'm going to show you sort of how to make this clean, simple style, and you know, some nice lighting effects and things like that in Photoshop. So let's get into the tutorial. So now I'm in Photoshop. I've actually got a template that I use, which is like this, exactly like this template I'm using now, which has a bars layer and my watermark and all of that sort of stuff. If you do not have a template like this for a YouTube banner for Photoshop already, I will leave a link in the description below for this exact one that I'm using, just without my logo. And so yeah, let's get into the tutorial really. So the first thing I'd normally do is I'd get all of the stuff that I need for the banner, so all of the pictures, all of the stuff like that, ready in a folder, which I've not actually done for this because it's only a tutorial, but I usually get all of that sort of stuff ready, including a notepad with all of their social media, all of that sort of stuff that they want on there. So for this one I'm actually going to make a banner for myself, so I'm just going to drag in my logo here and click OK, and OK again. And then I'm going to copy over some images what I opened up earlier. I personally like playing Counter-Strike, so I'm going to copy over some Counter-Strike images to use on this banner, which isn't copying. There we go. I'm just going to copy these over to use in this banner. Like I said, you probably want to use images that either they've sent you, or images from games that the person plays, or just images that they've generally sent you, so product images, player images from them at a tournament or something like that. So now I've got these three images and I've got obviously my logo in there. I'm going to put all of these underneath the design by layer and the bars layer, which you'll probably want to do as well. And then once I've done that, I'm just going to change the colour of my logo to white, because I know I'm probably going to want it white and not black. And OK. And I'm going to rasterize layer. I'm going to create a duplicate of this and just close one of them off. Make this one a little bit smaller because obviously I want it to fit on my banner, like so. In fact, including a little bit more text, I probably want it a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to center that for now. And the first thing I usually do is actually, once I've got all of this sort of stuff in, is I'll just go in and make this sort of text, or a rough text layout that I'd like to use. So I'm going to make this text white. I'm personally going to use the font Geominous Bold, but you guys can use whatever font you like. And I'm just going to first of all go in and type in my name. So on this one I want YLLiBz. YLLiBz, I probably want it around 30. Kerning around 1000, which, oh, it's already on 1000. And then I'm just going to drag this to around here, and I want this on regular. And I want to drag that underneath my logo, and then I'll probably want my website somewhere as well, so I'm going to duplicate that layer, and I'm going to put www.yllibz.co.uk, and then I'm going to create this a lot smaller than the previous one I just made, something like 14, and increase the kerning to 15. Obviously this is all down to what you personally think looks quite nice. You may think that looks terrible and the kerning's too big, and you know, the text is too small, or things like that, but I personally think that looks quite nice and will match what I'm making quite well. And then I'm just going to I'm just going to highlight the YLLiBz text and the logo, and then raise this up because obviously it's a bit too close to the bottom text originally, and I'm going to try and center that if I can. Yeah, that's centered. And then one of the last things I want is obviously my social media. If people have already sent this to you, obviously you can try and get a rough layout of where you think you'd want it. And for me, my social media actually is YLLiBz or YLLiBzify. So I'm going to highlight all of that, and for me I'm going to make this one a little bit bolder than the other text, so I'm going to make that bold. I'm going to make that 18, maybe even 24, so it's readable, and decrease the kerning to around 500, and click OK. And I personally think this will look quite nice beside my logo, sort of here, and then have the social media icons up above here, which I'm not actually going to put in my thingy yet because I can't be able to open it, but if you already have them handy, just drag and drop them in and put them in the same sort of area you think will personally look nice for your text to be in. So the next thing I want to do is play around with obviously my backing image. So I personally think this image will look nice over this side with him sort of facing and pointing inwards. So I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal, drag this guy over, resize it a little bit, and then click OK. And then I want this image here, which I'm going to drag above the other one now. And I personally think that one looks okay in that sort of position, and I'm just going to drag that over and have him facing inwards again. And then I have this image here, which the guy is in the center. So I'm going to resize this one, maybe a little bit smaller, and place him in the center. I'm just going to close that down. And one thing I think would look quite cool in this, I could probably leave it like that, but obviously it won't look very good. Or you could go over to your eraser tool, get an eraser with 0 hardness and change it to something like 500, maybe even 200, and then you can sort of just fade it in like that, which a lot of people do, and it does look quite nice, and especially on a banner you can't really see that much detail, so that would work perfectly fine. But one thing I like doing is trying to match the logo or the text that I'm using. So if you do have quite a pronounced logo, something with a lot of edges and things like that, I personally quite like using the same sort of shape from that. So with this one I'm going to use the same sort of shape as my logo, so this edge here and this edge across here. So I'm just going to go like that. Obviously this isn't going to be exact because it's only for a tutorial, and you'd probably want to spend a little bit of time on this yourself to try and get a little bit more exact than what I'm going to do here. I'll make this one a little, quite accurate, so sort of like that. And I'm just going to drag it over to the edge here, all the way to the side of my image, and then come across like so, and make selection, OK, and then just delete, making sure obviously you've got that layer selected and not another random layer. And then I'm just going to do the same for this side as well. So that's roughly matching the angle on that. And then I'm just going to do the same again, make selection, OK, delete. And I personally think that adds a little bit to it, and I could possibly actually come in a little bit further on this. So now I'm thinking about it, where the safe lines are. So if I remove this, if I remove these here, you can see that the safety lines, where the images were there, this is the main safety area, the main blue one in the middle. So that's the main thing that everyone sees on desktop. If I actually delete this, you'll see. So all devices on desktop, everything, tablet, all of that sort of stuff, phone, will see this main middle bit here. And then the sides is, your tablets and slightly larger screens. And then all the way at the side with these other boxes is what your desktop and the maximum size on the desktop will be able to see. So if I now look at where I've placed my images, we'll put that back on. If I now see where I place my images, this main middle box here will only see this very little square here, or this triangle here, either side of the other images, which probably doesn't look very good. If that's all you can see, that's not going to make much sense, and I've accidentally enabled that one. So I'm going to come across here and do this again, but I'm not going to do it quite so far out this time. I'm going to do it around here, and I'm going to go around again, doing exactly the same as I did previously. And okay, so these are the sort of things that you should consider when obviously you're making a banners, that you want everything important to be seen by any user that comes onto the channel, which is obviously quite important because you don't want them missing half the stuff that's on there. So once again I'm going to come across here, make selection, OK, delete, and that way people can see the main parts of that image, a little bit more of this image, and obviously all of the text and things are all in the center so everyone can see it. I'm just going to center this out again like so, and then I'm actually going to create a layer style on this. So I'm going to go to just the main image and create a layer style on this. So I'm going to start off with a stroke. I'm going to make this white. I'm going to create the size to around 5, maybe even 4, something like that, and then create this as an overlay. And as you can see, that now sort of overlays, and I personally think it gives it quite a nice effect. Or you can either just leave it on normal and make this the same color as what you plan to make the normal banner, so you may want to make that blue or something like that, but I personally quite like making it white and adding an overlay effect to it. And then I'm going to create a little bit of an outer glow. There it is, outer glow, and I'm going to create this to be a bit of a blue colour, increase the sizing to around 50, and then decrease the opacity to around 50. And then once again, you'll probably want to play around with this to get it looking how you personally like it. And I'm going to go to my inner glow as well. And then with the inner glow, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to change it to around a blue colour. Make it a bit larger, so something like 50. And then change it to around 50% opacity as well. And then click OK. And then I'm going to right click on this and copy layer style. And then paste that layer style on all of the other images that you've put into it as well. Oh dear. I've just noticed that image comes across here. As you can see, I didn't notice that until just now. So with that, I'll want to just delete that part of that image because you won't be able to see it anyway. Make selection and just delete it. So if you have anything like that, just do what I just done there and delete a little bit that's sort of hovering over the side, which you don't need. So once I've done that, you can see that this is all, these have all got the same layer style and everything on it. So once I've done that, I'm going to go to each one of these images and press Ctrl U on my keyboard. And then change the saturation to 0 and OK, and I'm just going to do that for the rest here real quick. And then once I've done that, I'm just going to highlight both of these and click Ctrl G on my keyboard to group them and name these as backing images, so I know obviously what they are. And as you can see, it's just the backing images. And then with these, I'm then just going to create a few adjustment layers. So with the adjustment layer, I'm going to start off with the curves, and I'm just going to create something quite simple. And this will obviously differ depending on what sort of images you're using and what you think looks nice, but I'm just going to create something simple like that. And I'm going to create a brightness and contrast, and I'm just going to increase the contrast for around 20, maybe even 10. And then once I've done that, I'm just going to group both of them layers and do it once again, just backing or something like that, just so I know what those are. And then all I'm going to do now is actually lower the opacity on this. It's quite simple really. I'm just going to lower the opacity to something like 50, maybe even 25, like so. And then I'm going to create a new layer, go to my brush tool, bake it around 1000, maybe 1500. Select your colour or even white, whatever you think personally looks nice, and create some lighting here, like so. I'm just going to create them quite simply like that. And then go to your blending mode on that layer and change it to soft light or overlay, or maybe even screen would look nice. And then lower the opacity on that as well to something like 75 or 50. Oh, sorry, I accidentally paused my recording there, so I'm just going to carry off where I was at. So once I've done that, I'll just go to my backing images and create the opacity to around 25 or 50 or something like that. You could even try changing the layer styles on this. So if I put that back to 100 opacity, changing the layer style to something like soft or overlay, something like that, and then actually adding some lighting behind this by going to new layer, just putting it white and doing the same as what we did before, but adding a little bit of lighting either side like so. Oh, maybe a little bit less away, a little bit out of the top too, like that. And then with that as well, you want to lower the opacity on that so it's not too bright like it is at the moment I am on the screen. So change that to around 25, maybe even 15, something like that. So it's got some nice lighting and you can still see the image and the effects that you've put on it. And so once I've done that, as you can see, this sort of works okay as it is anyway. It's quite clean, quite simple. I will usually go in and add a few other little effects and then obviously finish off the text and things like that. So with this, the text actually doesn't really seem to be centered up with what I've got going on. So I'm going to go to my backing images, I'm going to go to my main middle image here, and I'm just going to drag this across a little bit until these sort of edges seem to line up a little bit better than what they do. That looks good. And then I'm going to go up to all of my other layers, so my logo, my text and stuff like that, and I'm going to add a layer style to these because at the moment they don't have a layer style, and it'd be a little bit more readable if they had a little bit more of a layer style on them. You can either play around with this quite a lot, or you can just create something quite simple. So I'm going to go with something quite simple, and I'm just going to go to my gradient, leave it as it is by default, and then go to 50, maybe even 25 opacity. I'm personally going to say 50 on this one, and go to drop shadow, distance 0, spread 10, and size 10, and then change the opacity to around 50%, maybe even a little bit lower if you feel like it. And that's now made this stand out a lot more to what it previously did. So if I go on here, I turn that off, turn it back on, you can see that now stands out a lot more than what it did. And I'm also going to go back into this and add an inner glow, and then with the inner glow I'm just going to leave it on this sort of whitey colour, change the size to around 2, actually 3, and leave as it is like that. And then once I've done that, I'm just going to copy the layer style on this by just going to the layer, right clicking, copy layer style, and then going to all my other layers that I want to put it on. So I want to put it on the other text, which is obviously the other text and logo that's already in there, and I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to close that up. And I remember earlier I said to make a duplicate of your logo. I already saved that here, and I've got a duplicate here. With this duplicate, I'm just going to make this a little bit larger than what it actually is, like so. I'm just going to put in what I think is quite a nice position, and I'm going to go to the blending modes and change it to overlay, and click OK. And I'm going to make another duplicate of this. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm actually going to change the angle of it, which I'm going to put it to around -30, and then OK. And with this one I'm going to make it a lot larger. This is going to blur it a little bit and make it a little bit pixelated, but I do have a an AI file of it, so I could always just put in this AI file of it and make it big like this, and this way it won't blur out. But this is only for a tutorial, so I'm just going to quickly show you how to do it just like that. And I'm going to drag it over to the side here, and I'm actually going to go to the backing images and put this underneath the first image that's in the middle here. So we've got the middle image, which is this one, as you can see. So I'm going to put that personal logo, the duplicate we just made here, underneath that, put it into a nice position, put it around there, duplicate that layer, and then go to edit, transform horizontal, and then drag this over, and I'm going to highlight both of them and just make sure they're centered up with the ruler using my arrow key like so, and that's nice and centered. But with these ones I'm actually going to change the opacity to around 50, and then click OK. And once I've done that, I'll usually then go in and obviously add the social media. So I'm going to open that up quickly. If you just give me a second here. Pack. I'm just going to open that up, and I'm going to go to small icons, social media, and I'm going to add, I have a YouTube, Facebook, and a Twitter. Yep. I'm just going to drag these over onto here. So I'm going to put them all the way up to the top. So I've got them here like so, and I'm going to delete the layer style that's already on them because I don't actually want it, and I'm going to go to my Facebook, and with Facebook I personally like only having the F and not all of the other box outside, so I'm going to just select that using the selection tool up here, the magic wand tool, and just clicking on it, obviously with that layer selected, and then going to select inverse and then pressing delete. And I'm going to do the same with the YouTube logo here. I personally only like having the outside bit, I'm not the little middle bit. And then I'm going to copy the layer style from the text and stuff below that we previously made, highlight the social media and paste. And then with these I'm going to go, oh actually before I do that, because I haven't done that properly yet, I'm just going to, first of all I'm going to undo what we just done there, and I'm going to create the colour, and I'm going to make this a blue colour, something quite bright, quite bright. Sorry, I've got a bit of a dry throat. Something a bit bright, and then just click OK, copy this and copy this layer style and paste it to the others like so, and then right click on all of them and rasterize layer, and then copy the previous one that we made like we did just earlier and paste that here like so, so it matches. And with this one I actually think that the highlights around the edges don't really work very well on this, so I'm going to go to my inner glow, and I'm going to go to the opacity and change it to something like 25 instead, and click OK, and then copy that one, that layer style, and paste it onto all of them so they've all got the same layer style. And then with this, I always make these the same size, so I'm just going to do this quite roughly now, and obviously you guys can spend a little bit longer on this, but I'm just going to roughly make it all of them the same size by just dragging them over and resizing them. And then once I've got that, I'm just going to create a nice spacing between them all, maybe a little bit bigger either side, and I'm going to highlight all three, drag it down to where I originally said I think I want the social media, and that looks okay, but to me the social media look absolutely huge and don't really need to be that big, so I'm just going to make these smaller again, just highlighting them and making them small, and then I'm just going to sort of center them up. And although I now think they look like a more suitable size, I now think that actually the text I made earlier is probably a bit too big and doesn't really work, so I'm going to go back to my text and I'm going to make this a bit smaller. So with this, I'm going to make this around probably 18, maybe even 14, nah, 18, and I'm going to then drag this to the side. Actually no, I quite like it like that actually. And then I want to put this sort of in the middle of my text, like so. And so this isn't perfect, and I personally think that looks quite nice really. And all I'm going to do after that is I'm going to zoom out a little bit again so I can see sort of what's going on. And then after I've done that, as you can see, it's got all my text, all of the stuff in the layout that I want, my logo used, and little highlights with the logo used around the edges as well, and the games I've got in the background with some nice lighting. So all I'll do after that is try and add some nice effects to it. So one thing I think that looks quite nice is to get a random shape, something like this, and make sure you've got the fill selected to none, the stroke selected, and add that to white and add it to something like 10 or maybe even 5, and just create this shape, and then rotate it, something like that, make a few duplicates with a few different sizes and, you know, all that sort of stuff, and just play around really. This is only for a tutorial, so this isn't really something perfect, and I would obviously spend a little bit more time making something like this. And I'm just going to highlight all of these and merge the shape, rasterize, and then go to overlay, and then center this up and lay this a little bit further down. So I'd add random shapes and things like that. Obviously try and add things that sort of match to the design you're making, which I personally don't think that sort of matches what I've just made. And another thing that I think looks quite cool is if you go to your filters, I don't know what they're actually called to be honest, but if you go to them here and you add a gradient, so that's just added a gradient, and if we go to these and make these the same sort of colour as what we chose the banner, so blue, I'm going to copy this hex tag here, okay, oh I didn't mean to do that, and paste that onto both of them here, and I'm going to change the scale to around 25, no, maybe 50 will look a little bit better, yeah. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to open that back up again. Nope. And then drag this down a little bit. Okay. And then change the layer style on this to something like screen. Yep. And the opacity to around 75, something like that. And I think that's now give it a little bit more lighting and a little bit more of a cool effect to it. One thing I have seen a lot of people do as well recently is to go all the way to the top of everything you've made and create a shape here around the outside, like so, with your stroke on and your fill off, and change this to something like 5 or 7, like that. And I'm actually going to size this so it's exactly where I wanted it. I think that'll do. And then they rasterize this layer. Go to soft light or overlay, to create a sort of a lighting overlay effect around the edges here. And then you can always go in with a brush with 0 hardness and make it, you know, quite big, and go around the edges and delete the edges a lot, so to give it a little bit more of a highlighted effect. So that is one thing I actually see a lot of people do as well. And I'm just going to go back to this example here, and with this example you can see some lines and stuff here and a little bit more lighting. So with that, all I done really was go all the way above to the top of what I've done, made a new layer, gone to white or a colour, it doesn't really matter. This one I'm personally going to do a colour, changed the size, went to my brush and changed the size to around 500 and made a few dots like so. And then I've gone to a darker colour, so I'm going to go to a dark blue this time instead and do the same in a different spot. And then go to my I've gone totally blank, but go to this and change these to something that looks quite nice. So I personally think something like soft light on here helps bring out the colours, and then I'll lower this to something like 50%, maybe even 25, and put that underneath the bars. And then one thing that people actually like doing is obviously having the bright colour stand out more. So going in between the logo or right at the sides here with a white colour, and then going to overlay or soft light to add a little bit of lighting. And once again, I usually change this so it's not too bright, something like 50 or 75 and things like that, to add a little bit of lighting and a little bit of brightness around the edges and things. And one thing I did do with the previous example was I added some lines. So with that, all I literally done was go to my rectangle tool, made them quite long and a little bit thicker, changed that to nothing and feel white, and then rasterize this by going to rasterize layer. And then I went to my eraser tool, changed this to something around 250, maybe even 500. Yeah, 500 probably be a bit better for what we're doing here. 500 pixels, and just delete the edges either side. There we go. And then with this, I just made a few duplicates, like so, moving them around a little bit, making them a bit closer, a bit further away. And I did this quite a few times, and then I highlighted all of them, merge layer, put them at an angle, and I can remember I made this around, I think it was 36 or something like that, around that, to sort of match the same sort of angle that we've got previously. Made another duplicate of this, made this one smaller, and then dragged it into what I thought would look like quite a nice position. Made another duplicate of that, dragged it to another position, highlighted them all again, merged them. Oh, I've just done merge visible, oops. Merge all of the layers, make that another duplicate, edit, transform horizontal, and then drag this to the side. And then highlight both of them and sort of make sure they're nicely centered out, which they are already. And then I'd merge these again, and then go to soft light or overlay. Personally, I think that one looks a little bit better on soft light, to create, you know, another nice cool effect to the image. And what am I doing? I've made a selection. There we go. I wanted to press Control F, and then I've just saved that again. Personally, I think this looks, you know, quite cool. It's not the best thing I've ever made, and I have made it quite quickly for tutorial, while obviously explaining things as well. And obviously you can add a lot more effects and things, so you might even want to add some smoke, which I think I've actually got some smoke thingies in some smoke brushes, or you can add some smoke stocks and things like that. So on this I might want to go to is that some smoke? Some smoke, and add some smoke. Obviously send something quickly, and then go to something like soft light or overlay and lower this down a little bit, so it's got a little bit of smoke around the edges and highlights. But that's all down to what you personally like. I personally don't think that looks very good, but that is sort of my process when it comes to making a clean banner, as I usually get all of the images and resources, so all of the social media links, all of that sort of stuff ready before I start any work. That way I can import all of the images and sort of get cracking. And the first thing I usually do, like I said, is get a rough layout of where I think the text would look quite nice, or where I think the images and things would look quite nice, and the sort of layout that I think would look good. And then I go around actually making that and sort of working around it. So anyway guys, I hope this tutorial was helpful. Sorry if I rambled a little bit, and please leave a comment in the description, comment in the comments section below with some other examples of tutorials that you want, or possibly just some tutorial template ideas as well. So anyway guys, thanks for watching this tutorial, and I hope to see you in the next one.